Hello, everybody. Welcome to the re-evolution of SEO in AI world. Thanks to everybody for joining us. We are going to start in a couple of minutes maximum. In the meantime, let me introduce you myself, Ali Agostini, founder of AvantGrade.com, search agency active in different countries in Europe. I wrote a lot of stuff about SEO and search engine optimization, did a TEDx, several books, and today I have a great pleasure to have with me one of the person I appreciated the most when I worked in the project booking.com, and together with me is Duan Forrester. For those of you who don't know, Duan is a recognized leader in search and digital marketing industry across the world. He used to work in Microsoft Bing. He was a partner in Bruce Clay, and he was a top leader manager in Yext. Currently, he will introduce himself a little bit more, but he is CTO of Indexer.ai. For those who don't know, he's also expert not just in search engine optimization, but also in consumer behavior and customer experience. And today we're going to talk about that in the new AI platform. Duan was also the leader in the production of Bing Webmaster Tool and in schema.org. So he has a lot of credentials, and it's great to have him here together with us. Hi, Duan.
I'm excited to be here. I can't wait. I think we have an excellent program today for everyone. So I am excited to get started.
Thanks, Duan. So I'm going to start with a little bit of introduction, and then we will have several questions to Duan from us, and also for the people attending, you can ask question every time we finish one. You can start and you can make your own question. So we are used to the search in a way that let's say it's been the same in the last 20 years. We search and we find the blue links, and of course this is always the same in the last 20 years. What we now experience nevertheless is that every time you ask a question to Google, you get a list of relevant web pages, but most of the time you start with a search, you want to get an answer within a few minutes, but you end up in the messy middle. You end up in losing a lot of time. You end up with at the end of the search that you maybe didn't accomplish the task you wanted, and in the end you kind of let's say in the messy middle. But we see a new way to search online with the new AI platform, and we believe that this is the first beginning of what is going to be a new way of doing SEO, what we will call it answer engine optimization, not search engine optimization. I want to quote here one of the best, in my opinion, new search engine based in AI, which is Perplexity. The future is people searching and getting relevant information and getting synthesized answer in a conversational matter, starting from the synthesis and then going, if they want, into the details, not having to visit hundreds of websites before finding out what the consumer really wants. And this is a big shift in the way people are going to behave into the search platform. And again, for the companies that want to be part of this new AI world, search engine world, it will be important to be in the list of the sources of the answer. So providing the answer, being one of the few who provides the answer into the Perplexity, into the ChatGPT or Claude or whatever, this is going to be probably the new game we are going to face. Let me now start with a question for Duan Forrester. This was just an introduction, and my first question to Duan is exactly this one. How is artificial intelligence transforming search behavior?
Yeah, this is I think there's two sides to this really if we look at it. And we have some more information in the slide that follows this one related to it, but I kind of want to if folks can read this. I'm going to talk a little bit differently. There's two sides to this. First off, there's the consumer side, and there is then also the side at a search engine itself. So some company like Google or Microsoft Bing and so on. On the business side, we have for the first time um, systems that are truly black box. Uh, the people that work at the search engine cannot go in and look at what's going on, and all they see is the output, similar to you or I, for example. The difference is that there is an actual pause between the answer showing up for the consumer and when the system delivered the answer. So the system delivers the answer. There's another layer that looks at that answer and says reasonable, unreasonable, and then passes it along to the consumer. Along the way, that same system, the platform. So if we think of Google, for example, because we'll touch on AI overviews a little bit later today. Um, if we think about that system, there are a lot of checks and balances that have to happen before the answer comes up. Part of that is going to be personalization, the things that you're asking about, even if it's the same topic as what I ask for. Our histories will dictate slightly different answers, and as we engage with those answers, that will redefine direction and move us a little farther apart, and so on. That's a very important differentiator because when we're performing as marketers, as SEOs, uh, the work we're trying to do is is applied in a mass fashion. We want to edit a template. We want to focus on the highest value keywords, build content that gets more traffic, and less focus on long tail. That is the wrong way to approach things today. We absolutely have to focus on long tail first. So there's that side of it. And the other side of it is the consumer. And I read some statistics this morning from a study that was out. NPR, the National Public Radio Service here in the United States, published this article. And it says that 40% of consumers in the United States, and this is people between 18 and 64 years old, use a generative AI system at least daily in their lives. And they break it down between, whether it's work related, personal, and so on. But that was kind of eye opening to the authors of the survey. They did not expect the adoption rate to be that high at this point. I'm sure everyone who is tuned into this session, ourselves included, and anyone who will watch it afterwards, we use these systems on a daily basis. So we're very familiar with them. Many of us pay for access to things like ChatGPT Plus, for example. So we have the latest versions of these systems answering questions and giving us information. The reality, though, is that as a consumer of this, our expectations have changed and will continue to change at a rapid pace. When we used to do a search in Google, and when we still do a search in Google, most of the queries are very fast. They are milliseconds to actually show up and give us our answer, if you will. What we all know as a search engine results page or a SERP, we consider to be an answer. It's not really the answer, it's the beginning of the work that you have to do as a consumer to get to the answer to the question that you asked. So there's quite a gap between your question and then you actually understanding the answer to that question. And these systems are actually doing a very good job of filling in that gap, but they take a lot longer. So, what was taking hundreds of a second, milliseconds to come back as an answer for us, now comes back as a different form of answer, more closely related to something like a featured snippet. It's just one answer instead of all of the links. And we also have to wait. It might be 3 seconds, it might be 5 seconds, it might be 11 seconds. And as consumers, we've been taught that faster is better and we shouldn't have to wait. So now, as consumers, we are learning that if we want a good answer or what we perceive to be a good answer, we do in fact have to wait a little bit for it. So these expectations are changing. And I think that it's going to make consumers more thoughtful. It is going to introduce a moment, a pause. Um, but this is our future. The bullet point number 2 here. There's nothing easier for a consumer than asking for what they want out loud. This is human nature. This is how we are taught from our earliest stages of life to communicate. We are taught first and foremost to speak. And from there, we can then tell the world the things that we want. Even when we can't speak, when we're a baby, we can communicate with our parents that something is uncomfortable, that we are unhappy, that we are happy. We have this ability to communicate and desire to communicate that is genetic for our species. So the ability to speak to an AI generative system, tell it what you want, give it all of the information. I want a pair of blue shoes, but they can't be suede. And I want no heels on them. And I don't want any laces. And I want them to be waterproof. This is how we communicate as human beings. It's sometimes non-linear because as we're saying things, we think of more things that are related and important to us, and we just continue to add these pieces. To type that out is cumbersome. We stop, we hope the system will figure it out. But to speak, to say it out loud, this is our natural communication state. It's also why ChatGPT spent a lot of time and recently put out a very large update around voice. That is an important factor. So this is leading to a lot of things. I have been for years speaking about a concept called the splinter net. It's not my idea. I did not start this phrase. It started back in the early 1990s, I think, maybe the late 1980s. Just as the internet was starting, it was used to describe the companies who would be able to join the internet because the cost of servers was so high that only certain companies could afford to join the internet, and therefore we would have a splinter net based on this kind of hardware scenario. Today, our version of the splinter net is very different. Today, the splinter net is what I see coming is, as Ali pointed out early on, we're evolving toward answers engines. And beyond that, we'll talk a little bit later about agents, AI agents, and how we evolve from answer engines to AI agents and what that means. The splinter net is going to be very real. All of those third, second, fourth, fifth page links are going to be largely meaningless because we are entering a world where you ask a question, you get an answer. And if the consumer believes the answer is good and trustworthy, they're done. They move on. They have what they need, they move on, even if it is inaccurate. I personally have been shopping for a new vehicle. It should surprise no one living in the United States. This vehicle will be a pickup truck. And one of the models I'm looking for, I keep asking ChatGPT for information on it. And it keeps telling me that the size of the gas tank is 21 gallons US. I happen to know that that is not the case. The actual size is 18.5 gallons. And it continues to get it wrong. I continue to correct it. It continues to apologize. And then it redoes its calculations for range and fuel economy and so on. And the next time I ask it, it gets it wrong again. And it pulls from a common source that was a pre production article that a trusted news service in the automotive world had published. And at that time, they did not have the information. And the information that had been shared from the manufacturer was of a non hybrid vehicle, which does have a larger gas tank, but the hybrid vehicle has a smaller one. So there's still a lot that we have to uncover here. Thankfully, I know the subject matter, so I understand the problem and the failure here. And I'm not deluded. I'm not deluded to think it's a correct answer. But if you don't know these things, you would believe the information it tells you, and your expectations as a consumer change. So
This is
I
very interesting point, Duan, because you basically envision the role of SEO also in understanding what kind of information is being distributed across the different internet platform and when it's going to be distributed. And this can make an
Yes.
impact on the answer that we get into the platform. And
So,
I wanted to emphasize something that Duan just said. The consumer, when searching in Google, doesn't want to wait. He wants the results on the page instantly. But
mhm,
in ChatGPT, we have seen the latest version. It even says, "I
yes,
am thinking and
I'm
processing
thinking
and think," and it
exactly.
requires 8 seconds, which
Yes,
tells me that the consumer now is giving the platform more time to think because he believes the answer is going to be
yes,
good.
yes. And there's a lot of psychology involved with this. People treat these systems as if it's a type of person. They're polite to them. They say please and thank you. They generally will wait. They place a lot of trust in them. It's a really really important time for us. And as businesses, you know, Ali, you said something there that's extremely important. There's a saying in the tech world, garbage in, garbage out. I'm sure that exists in many other industries as well. If you put bad information in, then the answers you get back is not good. And SEOs today and the work that's being done, and when I say SEOs, I'm inclusive of everything. I'm including in this technical SEO, I'm including content development, I'm including social media management, I am including branding. All of this is important moving forward to the world of an SEO. And just doing the technical SEO is not enough. And just seeing the technical SEO is too narrow a vision. You have to have a much broader, a much larger view of everything that your company is working on and how all of those pieces fit together. Because when that AI crawler comes and takes all of your information and brings it back into its own index to use in formulating an answer, if you produce something that is less than optimal or is inaccurate, the system will not fact check you. It will trust you and use that information. And then when it gives credit, if there is an error, the consumer will believe that the error comes from you, the source. So you really do have to dot every I, cross every T. You have to be diligent. SEO today, it's never been more complex. I recently did a video on my Click Savvy Marketing YouTube channel, and I talked specifically about how complex SEO has become over the last 30 years. And it is absolutely all encompassing today. And to be successful with whether it's AI overviews at Google, whether it's Copilot at Bing, when ChatGPT releases Search GPT more broadly, even Perplexity, for example, to be successful requires a very different focus today than what you and I grew up with, at least. And I'm sure many of the people on the webinar today, they're nodding their heads saying the same thing. So, and we'll talk a little bit about how to keep up with that shortly.
Great. By the way, we have a second question for Duan. If you guys that are a lot of people join the webinar, if you have some question, you can start to put them
Mhm.
into the chat, or and we will start to take in also the extra question. But we have a second already prepared question: how AI will change and transform the SEO work, which you basically started to introduce it, Duan. I leave again. Uh, Reflexology to you, let's say.
Yeah, so this is I think the most important takeaway from this is this third bullet point that we have here, right? Look at everything through the eyes and experiences of your consumer. Yeah, I know that, people are rolling their eyes at me because I'm not saying something that's new here, right? We have been talking about user experience and we have been talking about voice of the customer for decades. Um, but I have to actually ask you how much work you do to develop that information and then how much of that information you use to make your decisions. because I see on a daily basis areas for improvement on every website from a user experience. I see policy issues that are a problem. If you're selling something, if you have an e-commerce area, having your shipping and return information available as a part of the checkout process, and it is obvious, free shipping, free returns, all the way through that checkout process, can actually boost checkout completion because price sensitive consumers feel better about what they're doing. They feel like they have a trusted partner. If I buy this and I don't like this, I can give it back to you and you will give me my money back. That feels very good to a price conscious consumer. The other end of that spectrum is that will actually erode sales if you apply it in a luxury instance. So if someone is buying Ferragamo shoes, even a high-end watch like an Apple Watch, for example, um, those kinds of signals are not the signals those buyers are interested in. They want signals of exclusivity. And so you can see how the experiences for each consumer differ depending on who they are, which then makes us need to very much understand who our customer is. For years in my career, I've worked with these concepts at Microsoft and at Yext um, with a um, um, with a concept called ICP, the ideal client profile. And the way that you get there, the ideal client profile is nothing more than a modern way of saying demographics. That's essentially what it is. You're trying to create a customer persona. You're trying to understand who is Dwayne, how old is Dwayne, how much money does Dwayne make, what does Dwayne do for a living, where does Dwayne live, what are Dwayne's hobbies. You're trying to understand all of this about me so that when you position your product in front of me, you know that it's a good fit. You understand what price should be attractive to me. And there's a high degree of probability I will convert, I will buy that product. So it really is important to do this work. And you don't do this work once a year. This is ongoing work, which now means your SEO team has to make content decisions based on this ICP information. And this ICP information may be across 5, maybe 10 different clients, depending on the type of business you operate. So you have to identify all of them. You have to create work streams that appeal to each one of them for how you execute. You have to find a way to um, create more with less. So the more work you do is applied, or the work you do is applied to more instances, not fewer, because it doesn't work for your team if you have to maintain 10 individual types of the same page. That doesn't work. However, you should be able to have some understanding of generally who's purchasing a product and generally what type of experience works best for most of those clients. And that's what you build to. And if your SEO is telling you, well, but here are the keywords and here are the keyword volumes, you need to have a conversation about what SEO is today in a modern world. Because while that is interesting information, the fact of the matter is the future of this is all about long tail. And the reason it's about long tail is because it's about personalization, right? Again, I cannot stress enough how complex all of this is today, because every time you talk about one item, there are 3 things under it that need to now be looked at and discussed and understood. It's a very, very different a very different world than where we were even, I would say, 5 years ago. We want to say 2 years ago, but 2 years ago we were already using ChatGPT. So the world is moving at an extremely rapid pace. Like if you want to learn more about your consumers, do surveys, do focus groups, engage with them on social media. Social media, interestingly, consumers feel social media is a customer service platform for businesses. It's an entertainment platform, it's a news platform, but when it comes to the business that they're engaging with, if I bought a product from Ali, I would expect to get an answer about that product if I pinged him on X or on Facebook or on Instagram or on Threads or on TikTok or on Snap. The list goes on, right? And so you do have to actively be in those areas. And again, if you can identify your ideal client profile, one of the things that you will identify is where they tend to be active on social media. So if you know that your consumer is older, more affluent, they're probably on Facebook, they're probably not on TikTok. They consume on TikTok, but they don't participate on TikTok. They do participate in Instagram and definitely in Facebook, for example. And it's really important to understand your consumer at that level, because then you can start actually crafting and writing content that appeals directly to them. That is incredibly important. So the way
That's
work has changed has been, it's been eye-opening and very fast.
I shall summarize that SEO is becoming less technical and more marketing and consumer oriented from that
I,
regard.
I think the technical is still there. The technical is more technical than ever. Like it just continues to evolve. I mean, look, if you're not doing things like structured data, if you're not managing page load speeds, if you're not managing personalization, if you're not tracking page level engagement and using all of those metrics to help make decisions on how to improve your technical SEO, you're missing out on a lot there. That's really important stuff. However, it's starting to become, or already is, table stakes. That's the baseline. That is no longer what we would consider to be advanced. And
Uh,
so,
we have some question coming up. Before
yes,
we go to the next prepared question, I want to answer to one of those questions. So feel free also for the others to join with question. Davide is asking if Google, is it true that Google wants to reduce the investment in the generative AI so it can still use the existing search engine page with ADV for a longer period? And David says, what would be the future of search engine advertising? Uh-huh.
yes. So, I mean, Ollie, feel free to, share your thoughts on this as well. I Look, I can't speak for Google, but I will say this. Um, if you look at where Google derives revenue for the company, it's advertising. So they are definitely focused on protecting that ad revenue. Google is in a difficult position right now. There are legal issues they are facing in the United States and largely around the world, mostly Europe and the US. They need to protect revenue. They are a publicly traded company. They have a financial requirement to do the best thing for shareholders. So, no one should think poorly of Google for focusing on ad revenue. It is a requirement of the company. Unfortunately, the model that was invented and that they optimized and I think we could say perfected, um, at some point there's a natural lifespan where consumers are already ad blind. We kind of look past that. Every time there's a change to the ads, we get used to it, then we just ignore that spot again. Like there's that happens, and that erodes the value. And if you look at Perplexity, for example, Perplexity is all about the answer, and only recently have they started to put things that look like ads into it. So Perplexity, ChatGPT, and even Bing and Copilot in this regard, they started with, we're going to get good at giving you the answer through an AI system, and we'll figure out monetization later. And Google had to take the same approach. I think Google, Microsoft, and pretty much every company is struggling with how to monetize in an AI answer world. I'm sure there's a technical challenge to it. How do you properly match the actual content of an ad to the content that was generated by the AI? Like, that's a challenge because this is all happening instantly in real time. And sometimes it matches, maybe sometimes it doesn't. And when it doesn't, you get zero revenue. And when it does, you don't get that much more revenue. So they have to figure this out. And I think that's incredibly difficult because as a consumer, I don't want the ad, I just want the answer. And so there we are. I think SEA has a very long future ahead of it. There will always be a way for a business to pay for an ad that will be in front of a consumer. That will always exist. From the minute television started accepting advertisement, or even radio before it, we as a consumer and as a business understood the power of that reach. So that doesn't go anywhere. I think Google is still trying to figure out what this balance is. If we look at the early days of I don't even remember the name of what it was before it was AI overviews. If we look at that initial product and we look at how often it fired, how often it came up in queries, and then we look at AI overviews and we look over a 2-month period at the frequency of AI overviews showing up, we see that it has dropped dramatically. Like it's dropped from 60% of queries to 9% of queries. So it shows up much less frequently. And I think that's the system being tuned, understanding where an answer like that makes more sense, but also trying to balance with revenue
Very, yes, yes.
because they do have a requirement, and that requirement exists at every one of these companies. Like we all heard that OpenAI just did the largest investment round raise in the history of planet Earth, $6.6 billion. There's a reason for that because this number is going to be wrong, but I'll say it as an example. Like their burn rate on a daily basis is somewhere around 30 or 40 million dollars. Like it's an insane amount of money. So $6 billion.
Let's say it again. Let's say it again. 30 to 40 million US dollars of, let's say, loss every day compared to
Right.
the revenue they have and the
It's to
cost
operate.
of operating. Yes.
Right. And so we see very different models in play. That's my point here.
Yes, it's totally different models and totally different goals. And we should always remember that Google in 2018 had already a patent to develop ChatGPT. The patent is called
Yes.
"Attention is all you need." This patent is the patent that has been used by a ChatGPT engineer to make ChatGPT in OpenAI. So Google was able to do this before.
Yes.
Now is able to do it, but revenue is still very important for any company, any private company.
It turns out that building something like ChatGPT wasn't the hard part. We all thought it was, but it wasn't. The hard part is making it make money. That's the hard part.
That's the hard part. And this is still hard for everybody at the moment.
Exactly.
We have many other questions, but let me just go. We have 2 more questions predefined for Duan. Duan, I ask you your opinion, maybe a little bit in synthesis. What SEO tips are essential for influencing answer in the AI platform, in your opinion?
Yeah. Okay. So we'll go through this list pretty quick, and then I'll add a couple more here. Right. First off, do not block any AI system crawlers. Don't just let them in. Don't worry about them crawling and using your content. Google has been doing this since the beginning, and you are all okay with it. So this is not something to be worried about, right? Don't buy into the news and get panicked about something that doesn't need to be panicked about. Basically, the bottom line is you want to be included, just like you want to be indexed by Google. If you're not indexed, you can't show up. If you don't show up, you don't get clicks, no traffic, no revenue, and so on. We all know this. It's no different with the generative AI system. They can't access the content, they can't produce the answers, and so on. Make sure you're using structured data. I'm obviously a fan of schema.org, but it doesn't matter which one you're using. Make sure you're marking it up, right? That helps the systems build trustworthy answers. So you are a part of the solution. Lean into that. I'm a big fan of the EEAT framework as a guide for building excellent content. So that is experience, expertise, authority, and trust. If you build content to align with those concepts and you have good information that is directly from your consumers about what they want and the questions they have, you now can produce excellent quality answers. And that content, that answer is exactly what these systems are looking for. And the closer you can get to it, the more likely you are to end up being a part of the answer that actually gets credited. So, incredibly important to do that. And we are going to, there's a question in here that was asked about branded queries, branded search. Let me just reference this quickly. Do you think focusing heavily on brand awareness will be the key to gaining visibility in AI overview responses? And this is from
Ricardo.
yeah, Ricardo. Okay, there we go. Ricardo, yes and no. So what's really important about this is as you build out your content, as you build out your user experience, and you are known for high quality, that actually impacts your own brand and it helps your brand. You can do branding, campaigns, and you can do these things. They make sense. They are valuable. You should be looking at those as a part of your overall marketing mix. But they have also a direct impact on SEO, and SEO has a direct impact on branding. So you have to align those things. I think that every business should be focusing on brand awareness to some level, making sure that it's consistent, that the messaging is consistent, that all of your employees have the same messaging, that are all saying the same thing in their own way, so that the consumer understands who you are. And that is the key part of it. That consistency, I do believe, will help get you into an AI answer. There's no question in my mind. Because again, everything those systems do comes down to one word, and it's called compute. And that is a word that talks about the actual work the system performs. And attached to that is a cost. So anything you can do to lessen compute will lower the cost and make you more attractive. You need to think about this the same way we've all come to think about the concept of crawl budget and making your website crawlable for a search engine. When you make your website crawlable for a search engine, they want to come back because it's easy to get your content and it's easy to put in the index and it's easy for consumers. So of course they keep coming back. Incredibly important that we take that same idea and we apply it in the AI world. So it's like, you cannot skip questions. You cannot skip ideas. There is no question that is too small to be answered. You have to go very deep today. And this is why I said earlier that the concept of long tail has never been more important. Part of us talking out loud and asking questions as humans, we do not speak in keywords. We ask full sentences. We make statements that are long, and it's easy and fast for us to speak. But if you had to type that out, oh, you'd get bored and you'd need a nap halfway through your own sentence. It's terrible. But for these systems, it's all very fast. The processing of it is so fast and easy. This is why voice is so important today. And so if you can think of a question, you better have an answer for that question. Absolutely.
Great. Great. Before we go to the next question that we received, but also to the last one that we have already prepared, I shall tell you, everybody, keep following us on the social media and our newsletter, AvantGrade.com, LinkedIn, and Instagram. We will have at the end of the webinar some extra contents available there. So make sure you're following us and we keep ourselves connected. We discussed about a little bit about AI overviews. What do you think of AI overviews in Google? And also, I have a question from. No, we already had the question on over why. Okay, Mr. Duan said that we trust more in AI answer, but these. Let me just scroll a little bit there. Going. Okay, let's start with this one because it's coming too many questions, and I shall go and get it right before.
Well, look, I'll tell you this. I'll start and I'll go through this one fairly quickly. The AI overviews, and I think we can extend this conversation to include Copilot on Bing, to include something most of us probably haven't seen yet, which is Search GPT. We really don't know what that product looks like yet. I think we can include Perplexity in this. We can include Mistral. We can include anything that's built on Claude. Like all of these systems, they are all a work in progress. These companies, their goal is always the next version. The next version is better. And even then, we see a difference, a fork in the road. If you've been using ChatGPT 4, you've felt pretty good about the system and its abilities. Whether it's asking it to make images or answer questions or do complex thinking, it's really good. But if you've moved over now to Preview o1, you start to see that it's much better at deep thinking, but it's actually like it cannot do images. It doesn't work well. You cannot give it an attachment to look at and do something. So there is a lot to that. The reality with AI overviews is this is still Google learning. Consumers are learning. They're trying to figure out how to preserve revenue or grow revenue, how to engage people properly, how to serve the business community. It's easy for someone like Perplexity to show up and say, here's one answer and nothing else. They don't have a history of serving the business community. And as a business, it's just you're included or not. If you're successful, they're not built on that. It's a very different model. Google, however, they have a history of serving businesses and they want to preserve that. They want to protect that. So they have to do that kind of thing. These systems ultimately are about providing unified answers. So it's how we get to the simplest thing, right? And Marco's question here about trusting AI, but if information is bad, then we get a bad answer. Hallucinations can actually be cured. And there are instances where very specific AI systems have been cured of hallucinating completely. So that can, in limited locations, for example, in the field of real estate, you could train a system to never hallucinate. And all of the information is high quality, and therefore all of the answers are high quality and always trustworthy. If you add new information, it changes the equation. If you pull from a different source, it changes that equation. If you move to a different industry, you have to do the training over again. So it is a lot of work. It is not easy. It is not fast, but it is possible, and we will get there. However, you, the business, you have to actually make sure that you are constantly, everything you write, you spell check, you grammar check, you make sure that it's written at the level of comprehension that most people will understand. You make sure that the pages load quickly, that your website is reliable, that crawlers can get in there, that you have a good user experience. You listen to surveys, you make changes that improve the website. It is always ongoing. By doing these things, you are ensuring what you produce is the best quality. And that is as much as you can do as a business. A really key part of that, engage with your consumers. Make sure you're listening to reviews and responding to reviews. Watch all of those places, including social media, and engage with the conversations. It can be soul crushing, but it is incredibly important that consumers see you engaging with other consumers.
Thank you, Duan. It was very interesting. So we take the chance for the last questions. We are going close to the end of the nice conversation. I have someone asking Anna Maria, what do you think will be the future of keyword searches?
So I think the future of keyword search, there's a number of different ways I'll answer this question. First off, if you're doing research, you still have to do the research, but it's very baseline. That's the reality of keyword research today. More value is found in long tail keywords than in the head keywords. So obviously that focus has shifted. If we're thinking about the difference between people talking or typing, more people will type in keywords, more people will talk in long tail sentence structure. So we will see this change. I think one of the challenges is going to be, and you will notice this almost universally, none of these systems provides data to businesses at this point. They do not share any, there are no webmaster tools at Perplexity. I have reached out to them and told them I would go there and build them. There are no tools that actually share that data. Google's not sharing it. Bing is not sharing it. It's not available yet. Someone is going to have an advantage in the business world when they start offering this type of information in their system. It will be an advantage because business owners will need that information to make decisions. The AI will be able to say, hey, we have 14 queries that are all on one topic. Here's the main topic. So you don't have to actually understand each one of those individual statements. You just know that each one of those individual statements is saying, I got a pair of shoes from you and there were no laces. And that's a problem and you have to fix that. So then you have to explain to them, the shoe uses Velcro, there are no laces. And so this is your content, right? So I think there's a very different future for keyword search. I think that we have to expand our concept and what the meaning of keyword search actually means. We have to be more, there's more to it now than there has been in the past.
Great. This is very interesting from a consumer perspective, but also from a company perspective. A lot of companies provide keyword research into the services they give to the customer. This is absolutely important that it's changing, and it's including long tail, and it's including the intent, it's including the personas we want to talk about.
It's including intent, it's including context, it's including ideas. Like if I said to you, I need a new coffee maker, that's a very, like, on one hand, you could simply say, okay, any coffee maker, here you go. You now have a new coffee maker. But if I tell you that I collect coffee from all around the world, that I grind my own beans, that I commission the blending of my own coffee, and then have that shipped to me, you might think differently about the type of coffee machine you would give me or recommend to me, because obviously a regular machine is not what I want. But both of us are consumers of the product, and we would both say, I need a new coffee maker. We mean different things. And these systems are actually able to understand what I mean versus what you mean. That is hugely important. So you, the business, also have to understand that. You have to figure that out.
And I have a little surprise for you. No, this was a project in which we worked together with Duan in Booking.com. We worked especially on optimizing Bing for Google Booking.com. I have to tell everybody that is in the meeting, do not forget Bing, Microsoft Bing. Microsoft Bing now is part of the search business, let's say. It's definitely very important for you to understand how it works. We as AvantGrade.com, we did a lot of optimization on Bing.com because we believe it's going to funnel what you get from Copilot and what you get from the platform of Microsoft.
That was awesome, Ale. I think I have a little more gray hair now than back then. But I'm overdue to head back to Amsterdam. So so we should go to Amsterdam and have coffee. That seems fitting. I think we have one more question if we have time for it.
Yes. Last one from Marco again, I guess.
Excellent.
I saw that actually Google is penalizing website well positioned with long tail keywords, giving more trusted website, even if these are not well positioned in the long tail. What do you think? The usual debate on the brand authority or long tail optimization.
So I think Google is trying to figure out the best way to do this. We're seeing experiments in real time is what's happening here. I think everyone will remember, maybe, I'm going to say a year ago, might be a little bit longer, might be a little bit shorter. All of a sudden, Reddit was everywhere in Google results. If it was in Reddit, Google used it as an answer. And then they said, we will rely more on Reddit. and then of course the spam in Reddit went through the roof, and they've dialed that back a little bit, right? Like, I think this is the same thing that we're seeing, right? Google is trying to find reliable signals. And then if you're on this call and you're an SEO, you're involved in SEO, or you know about SEO, please raise your hand, because you're part of the problem that Google faces, which is we're always trying to figure out a better way forward for our businesses. And that better way forward may work for my business and your business because we're legitimate. But for every legitimate business trying to give a consumer what they want and what Google says the consumer wants, there are 10 other bad actors out there trying to exploit it. And so Google is trying to separate the good from the bad, preserve the good experience, while actually doing something to, demote the bad. It's not easy being a search engine. I can promise you that. I work directly with the core search team at Bing. It is never ending. But long tail, from the consumer standpoint, I can tell you right now, there is absolutely no future in which long tail isn't the most important thing that we need to focus on, right? Like, when you ask your friend for advice, you don't stand there and say sleeping bag, cold, winter, camping. This is not how you communicate with your friend. You say to your friend, I'm going camping this winter. I need a sleeping bag for cold weather. That's how you communicate with these systems when you speak out loud. So long tail, incredibly important for us. And I did notice, Ali, that Giovanni has a question in here too that I think may have slipped by us. And the question is, Gemini serves as the foundation for the development of Google's new search generative experience. The outputs it provides have a well-defined text structure. Will this be the format we will use to interact with the AI? Should we learn from Gemini when crafting our content? And I will say this. I think it's important to pay attention to the output that Google is sharing, because they put a lot of time, effort, and money into developing what they believe should be shared out loud. So there are lessons to be learned from that. But I think what's more important is that you focus on your customer and you create content that resonates with your customer. The content that's written by these generative AI systems is designed to resonate with you. And remember, this is personalized. So what resonates with you as an individual might not be the same thing that resonates with your business's customers. So you have to have the voice of the customer. You have to focus on that client of your business and what resonates with them. It may be more colloquial, it may be more familiar, it may be more formal, depends on the business, depends on the client. But if you look at the output of these systems and say, I'm going to use that same tone, inflection, syntax, and so on, is that actually your customer? Does that resonate? For some people, yes, it will. But for a lot of people, no, it won't. So be very careful pulling the direction from that.
Fantastic. So, everybody, thank you very much for attending. It was a great pleasure to have Duan with us. We will share a detailed blog post in our AvantGrade.com website in Italian for those who want to access an Italian language, the key learning that we have. Thank you very much, Duan. It was a great time together. You gave us a lot of insight for the pros and also for the others. And we look forward to see you again somewhere in Europe for your business trips.
Absolutely. This has been fantastic, and thank you everyone who's on the call with us and everyone who stayed with us too. This is excellent. Love the questions. Looking forward to doing this again soon.
Great. Thanks everybody. Have a good evening. Follow us on social media, AvantGrade.com. Bye bye.
Thanks everyone. Bye bye.